Okay, so Roger said something that was sort of funny. He said that natural gas is crack cocaine to the energy industry. Do you
Okay.
want to address that?
Yeah. So I mean, there was a great dialogue there where Jim, he out at the outset of his, he got to go second, and he said he wanted it that way because he's a lawyer, and so he prefers the rebuttal rather than just laying your case out and letting it up to be overturned by the prosecution, right? Um, so he basically started out saying that there we run the 90% of all plants that have been done in the last and what is it? I don't know, say 20 years. 90% of the plants that have come online with natural gas. But his concern is that if legislation goes the wrong way, and if we run into a situation where we did, I don't know, say 20 years ago, where the government said you cannot burn natural gas for the use of generating power. There was at one point. His concern is that without being able to lock in long-term contracts, 15 to 20 years at a price or at least a price range, that he is not interested in natural gas until that legislative overhang gets removed. And so he said up front, I'm going to be provocative, I'm going to be on the edge, I'm going to be exciting, and I'm going to spice this up a little bit. So I'm going to throw out some things that may get people's blood boiling. And he did. Um, he called natural gas the crack cocaine and said that we're going to get to a point where we need it so much that
It's going to become like oil and coal, basically.
uh,
That's how I see oil and coal as we're. Um, it sort of seems different. We call natural gas a bridge fuel, but is it really a bridge fuel? Or is it just the next thing?
well, what's funny about his comment is you can go back to the thing I previously said about him is he's completely fuel agnostic, and so I think you have to take a grain of salt, with him when it says, when he says that a fuel is crack cocaine, you have to know up front that he is more than happy to stay hooked up to the coal IV, and that if we can convince people that clean coal exists, that he has really no concern whatsoever firing his power plants on coal forever. So I think that you have to be a little wary about what Jim specifically says, because his number one goal is to drive shareholder profit and to produce efficient energy to the biggest audience that he can get to. I mean, if it was up to him, he would supply power to the entire United States and he'd make a good profit at it. And I'm not saying it's anything related to his compensation. I'm just saying that you have to be concerned about where his comments are coming from. But oddly enough, or in a humorous tone, Aubrey fired back and said that you know comparing natural gas to cocaine is like saying coal is like heroin, except that that would give heroin a bad name.
Right.
Yeah. So.
So just to sum things up, because we're getting pretty over on time and be able to have a recording. But I just wanted to, we've talked a lot about what Roger said at the conference. Would you sum up kind of what Aubrey McClendon, what his take on the future of energy and natural gas and how that would?
Like I said earlier, oddly enough, both of them see natural gas as a bridge fuel. I had the opportunity to ask the question about transportation, because right now, if you go to California, you'll have municipal fleets and entire bus lines that are run off natural gas. So they have a centrally located natural gas filling station, and then at the end of the day, all the buses come back to the filling station and fill up, and it's very fuel efficient and it runs well. And so my question to him is, can we do some supply side economics? I know Larry Kudlow would be proud of me for talking about supply side economics, but can we get, rather than government subsidy, can we get supply side economics that provides natural gas filling stations and kind of shows the world that this model of having a centrally located filling station attached to like a fleet of vehicles, that is a realistic model for natural gas. And he basically said, um, that you can see how strong the coal lobby is. I mean, just in hearing Jim talk, you can see they're not going to give up coal without a fight. They do not want to. Jim basically said, I'm waiting. We think that the Chinese can prove in 5 years whether or not carbon capture or sequestration is a reality or not. He said in the U.S. it could take us 15 years because of the EPA, and I think they said in Europe the learning curve is like 10 years. But basically, all eyes are on China right now because China is throwing up a massive amount of coal-fired power plants, and if they can do it, if they can CCS, then I think that the future of natural gas is in danger almost, because the problem is that coal is 50% cleaner than natural gas is 50% cleaner than coal. If CCS becomes a reality, then you have the issue of, well, 25% of the what's generated by CCS actually gets used up in the process of creating it. And so, there's no simple issue to it, but we're not going to fire cars on coal. I can tell you that, right? And so I think that where I saw the future and where I saw that we could possibly do supply side economics is in building natural gas filling stations and working with a car company. And Aubrey and I got to talk after the session, and we joked back and forth that the U.S. government owns quite a bit of General Motors, and they actually own the means of production. And General Motors produces natural gas powered vehicles outside of our country. Oddly enough, they don't do it inside, so it's a little odd. The means of production already exist. The U.S. government actually owns the means of production, at least until this whole GM thing is and Chrysler is fixed up. So I would say replace police cars. Put police cars on natural gas. They obviously all they're a fleet. I think right now the Natural Gas Act, the biggest thing that the Natural Gas Act will do is convert all the heavy trucks in the country to run on natural gas, and then develop the infrastructure. Literally, we will need millions of jobs in order to create that infrastructure. And so I think that there's an impetus to do it. I think that there's a need in our country to make that next step. And if we remove the legislative overhang, then I think regardless of what happens to coal and whether or not clean coal is a myth or not, or if it's a unicorn or if it's real, is that if we can do the transportation piece, because we already see fluctuating oil prices. So the fact that natural gas fluctuates, it's irrelevant. You and I are used to going to the pump and seeing a different price every other week. So, so both of them, oddly enough, think that there's a future for natural gas, but Jim Rogers is unwilling to take a position on natural gas in a positive light until legislative overhang is removed.
All right. So thanks, Brad, for your insights on Chesapeake Energy and Duke Energy. Sounds like both companies are really strong, and we encourage you to do your own research on those companies. We'll be hearing more about the energy conference. I think it continues this afternoon. Thanks for going and taking your time to be there and answer all the questions for us. If any of you have any questions that you want us to address, just shoot us a message on Twitter and we'll try to get those up for you. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to Lunch at the Markets and have a great day.
All right, take care.